people missed that link in the welcome email, so I'll try and fix that. If you guys are in the Discord, you should all see it here in the chat on Zoom, the link to join. If it doesn't work, just let me know. And then for, I guess, any of you guys maybe new to the group or you haven't joined the Discord, if you guys see my screen, for whatever reason, when you guys first join the Discord, accept the invite, more times than not, it's not showing all the channels, like the state chats and all this stuff. So if that's the case, just make sure you go to the top to browse channels. And then I think there's a button to see all. Like you could select all the channels you want to see. So you should see like the contracts, the scripts, the trust agreement, calculator, state chats, Q&As, just all that stuff, resources. So if you don't see all that, just go to browse channels again at the top. All right, cool. For those of you guys new, any other questions?
Hey, Eric, I had a question. I'm not new, but
Yeah, what's up, Jesus?
So I'm getting ready to start working with my brother, and I referred back to that setting up the Podio video that you put in the Zoom recordings. And so I set all up Podio. Now my question was going to be, as far as like getting a list, like say my brother, he's going to be the one to make the phone calls. Did you also use Podio for like sending out lists to your employees when you were having them just make phone calls, or what other?
I always use an auto dialer, so I would always buy a list, good sized list, so 1,000+ records on each list, which is 2 or 3 phone numbers per record too. So it's a lot of contacts. But I would just take that list and upload it into an auto dialer, and then I used to have a VA work. It's a 3-line dialer, so it's calling 3 numbers at once, and then when somebody picks up, boom, pops up all their info, the address, and then you just hey, came across the house on blah 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 street, and then you're in the call. But stuff would only go into Podio if I believe there's an opportunity. So okay, yeah, I found out this person wants to sell, and I see an opportunity for some sort of deal. I think there's potential. And then it goes into Podio as a follow-up.
Okay, so the Podio would only be like potential deals, even if it's far out.
Yeah, lead. It's a lead. There's maybe an opportunity here.
Gotcha. Okay. Now my brother, he's not really wanting to do he's not really wanting. I don't think he's trying to go all in like with everything at the moment. He's trying to take it slow. But if he was, what other I guess resource would you recommend for starting out, like not spending any money? Like maybe like Excel spreadsheet or something like that, or Google Sheets or something.
Yeah. You're saying to avoid the spend on Podio?
No. Just for the dialer. I'm sure I already told him about the dialer, and he was like, "Nah, I don't really want to do the dialer." And I was like, "Okay, so maybe just sending them a Google Sheet or something."
All right. Here's kind of like my 2 cents. So when you buy a list, if it's a couple hundred, like 400, 500, 600 records and up, it becomes the biggest waste of time to hand dial it because it's too much. Even if you only had 100 records, I mean, maybe you could hand dial that, but 100 records, you got 3 numbers per record. So you're looking at 300 phone calls just for one attempt. So how long is it going to take to make one attempt on each person? Probably a couple of weeks, and things could happen with it. All right. So say it takes 30 days to call everybody once, just one call on 300 people. What could happen is in that 30 days, stuff is happening with these people. Oh, we just sold the house. Oh, we just listed the house. You're like, damn, man, if I just called them, when I first got that list, I would have been the one to get that deal. And I've seen that happen time and time again. So it's not that, I think there's easier ways to find deals than hand dialing a super fat list. I think list, once you're like 100+ records, the dialer is the way to go, for sure. Now, what you could do too is if anybody else, so we're talking about the cost. Most dialers, 3-line dialers should run you around $99 a month. I think that's what most of them are at. So like what you could do is partner with other people in the group, and I might even have couple that come to mind, and then you guys just share the dialer. Like, hey, I'm always going to plan to use it Wednesday night from this time, and Joe's going to use it on Saturdays from this time, and then before you know it, you got access to a dialer, and it costs you $10 a month. You know, so
Okay.
like that's what I would do if you're adamant on getting a list. If that's not gonna, and the list costs money too. You're looking at skip trace, average skip trace, you're looking at like 10 cents a record. So if you pull 1,000 records at 10 cents a pop, that's $100 right there. Get a dialer, $100. So you're 200 all in to start calling on a list, and it's also not guaranteed money either. So normally this is good for everybody to hear that, especially since I think a lot of us are still new chasing the first deal. So, some people, they teach like, yo, when you're starting out, you want to go get a list and go get a dialer. But I think that's kind of, I think that's the wrong approach, because what could happen is a list of 1,000 records, guys, that's a relatively small list. Like 1,000 records, you might not get a deal out of that, even if you do know what you're doing and you really attack it. So if you pull a list of 1,000 and the lack of experience is there, you could easily miss opportunity. So like, yeah, I had this lead, but I didn't know about Novation, or I think I could adjust my numbers for the wholesale in this way. So and I don't know exactly where you're at, Jesus, but just in general, for anybody that's still new and, hey, I'm just trying to learn wholesale still, I would avoid the spend.
I'm taking a nap, so get out.
Where am I going? So I think what makes the most sense is to do some of the free stuff, free forms of marketing, calling on market. Like, you're going to learn a lot through the process of taking action, so I would spend it there, because you're going to learn and it's not going to cost you any money. That's just kind of, like, that's kind of where my head's at with the spend. When you kind of have a decent skill level, like, all right, hey, I've closed maybe a deal or two, like, you really understand wholesale and whatnot, good at comping and all that stuff, know what to say. Once you start to pull like 3,000 records and you can bang on every phone number up to 7 times, then it becomes like guaranteed money. If it's properly, everything's done properly. But what I found is when you start to play with less than 3,000 records, it could be a little hit or miss depending on the data, if it's deep or wide data.
Yeah, we're pulling foreclosures or pre-foreclosures in our area. Well, at least in my county, and we're getting them through the county tax records, the public records. I'm just going in and manually writing a list for him to call, and I'm going about a month out, maybe 2 months, just so, like you said, we can have time to reach these people before their actual date comes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the avenue we're trying to start approaching at the moment. And he was even talking about probates, and I was like, those are kind of a little more experience. I know that it's not it's deals that get touched on less, so it's less competition, but it's also a lot more work to be able to land one of those. So
probate, it's more work. Like, there's, I don't know if you've seen the videos, but there's a whole section on probate alone, like to every fine little detail about it to do those types of deals. It's definitely a lot more work. I would say it's like more, how do I word this? Like, it's more work, but it's less phone calls, if you will. Like, the work becomes, I got to call the county and play the back and forth with them, or I got to go on the property appraiser and then try to line it up with the probate and then back to the property appraiser to see if the owners match up. So it's a lot more, I say, like admin computer work to do these probates. A lot less phone calls, though, because if I have 100 probate leads, I might actually convert one. But if I have 100 records, say, not even leads, but I have a list of 100 people, I might, that's definitely like probably not going to close a deal on that.
Right. And that's what we're trying to target, is more like people who have the need to sell.
Yeah.
So that we can, probably land a deal sooner. So we're not, because he doesn't want to put too much. I think that's why I tell him this would be the best focus, pre-foreclosures, maybe probates, because it's more specific, a niche, I guess you could call it.
For small operations, small being less than 8 guys on a team, it's really important. I talk about this in the Mastermind V1. It's really important that you have one form of deep marketing, deep form of marketing that's deep data, deeper list, people in distress, real distress, and then you have a wide form of data, which could be a little more broad. I'm calling the on markets, or maybe I'm pulling a big absentee owner list, stuff like that. But it's really important that you try and hone in on at least one deep. So like probate's great. Once you get it locked into, it doesn't take a lot of time either. So once you figure it out, it's a rinse and repeat thing. And then you could also tie in like the Zillow 1 days, which will be good. What we'll do, guys, we're gonna cover some stuff. We'll jump into it. I'll take more questions later. I just want to make sure we have enough time. We're gonna cover underwriting, just one last little thing. If you guys want to continuously go deeper and deeper into that, we could do that in the later weeks. But we'll just cover one more aspect today on underwriting. And then some of you guys were asking for lead generation with data. So, Jesus, this plays into kind of what you're asking. We could talk about data, generating leads using data for wholesale and creative finance too. So we'll cover a lot. Should be a really, really good Zoom. I would try and take some notes so this stuff tries and sticks with you guys. A lot of this stuff, it's easy just to like, I kind of get it, and then you totally forget it. Tomorrow if I asked you, you're like, kinda. But if you write it down, it's gonna stick. So I try and write down as much as possible. All right, let's dive into underwriting. We'll try and move quick. If I'm going too quick though, just let me know. If you guys have questions, just interrupt me. I don't mind. And let's just try and avoid drawing on the screen if we can too. All right, so let's say we came across this seller. Purchase price on this, they're going to be actually, what? Hold on. What we're doing is so let me give you a little context where we're going with underwriting today before we dive into it. So this is probably going to be one of the more important things to learn, and this is going to be actually properly underwriting a deal that is presented to us. So seller says, "Hey, I got a 2-unit. It's a great rental. Great. Let me underwrite it. Let me see if it actually is a good deal. Oh, I got an 8-unit building. It makes $10,000 every single year, pure net. All right, great. Let me underwrite it. Let me see if what you're saying is actually true, right? So more times than not, these people, these agents that are posting these deals up, it's a 6%, or it's a 10% cap rate, it's a 20% cash on cash, and then you underwrite and you're like, yo, this is the farthest thing from a 20% cash on cash, where there's no cap rate here. This thing is negative every single month. And if you guys could hone in and really learn what I'm about to share with you guys, what you'll find is more times than not, these multifamily deals that are posted online, they don't cash flow at all. They actually make $0. They make negative income every single month. And these agents, they don't know how to properly underwrite deals. And then boom, you come in, you show them what they do, and now you have so much ammo to negotiate the deal. Dude, I can't make sense of $600,000. It doesn't make any money. What are you talking about? It makes money. Really? Let's run through the numbers. And then boom, no, it doesn't. And then you leave them speechless. Oh, wow, I see what you're saying. So I'm telling you, most people do not know how to underwrite deals. If you do, it's going to give you so much leverage when you're negotiating these people. So let's here, this is some stuff you're going to want to write down. Let's pretend we're looking at a multi-family building. Doesn't matter the units, right? So the way we're going to, I think he left before I could catch him. That's the troll. I'll look out for him.
Blake, his name.
Yeah, he changed his name. He's slick with it.
Dude, where did these trolls come from?
It's the same guy for 2 years. The guy's
man.
He's a loser.
And he pays for it every month, so who cares?
No, who knows? He's probably like stuck in here somehow. Whatever. All right, so a couple things. So we always need financials to be able to underwrite it, right? Like that's going to be standard. So anytime we're looking at any multi, just always ask them. This is what you want to write down. Ask them for a P&L, and that's going to be the most important. That stands for
is the P&L the penis and loser?
Got him. We got him. All right. Guy's such a loser, man. Oh my goodness. I'm glad I'm taking up that much headspace of his. I think that's funny, but okay. All right. So P&L, that's the first thing we're going to want to ask for. Stands again for the profit and loss statement. So this is going to show like, all right, what was the profit on the deal? It's going to show the gross income. It's going to show most expenses tied to the property, and then what they perceive to be the net. So profit and loss, gross income, expenses, net. Just shows it for the entire year, broken out by each month, maybe annually. These docs, all of these docs that we're going to talk about, these could all vary how they look too, and you'll start to pick up on that as you're analyzing these types of stuff. So P&L, that's the first one. That's going to be the best thing we can get. If I get that, then more times than not, I'm good with that. I don't have to ask them for other docs if it's a true P&L. If they do not have the P&L, we could ask them for things like a rent roll. So that's going to just show the rents that they've been collecting over the past year, right? Or a couple of years. That you might ask them for a rent roll. They're like, yeah, I got 24, 23, 22, 21. Yeah, send them all over. And it helps analyze the performance of the property, right? So rent roll. Then we have a T12. That is your trailing 12. That's what that stands for. Very, very similar to a rent roll. So it's going to show the performance over the past 12 months of the property. More times than not, when I ask for a T12, they're normally just sending over basically a rent roll, just showing the income on the past 12 units or the past 12 months on those units. So P&L, that if we get that, we can stop at that. Perfect. That's all I need. If they don't have a P&L, do you have a T12 or a rent roll? And we're going to need that. Last thing we could ask them is for a pro forma. That's another term you guys will hear. A pro forma that's going to show the potential possibility of the property based on this. So, hey, if you go in there and you increase the rents and you put new kitchens in, then the property could perform like this. Pro forma, I don't really care. I really don't. Personally, I don't care 90% of the deals that I'm looking at. I don't care for the pro forma. How is it actually running? And then based on like potential performance, I'm going to kind of take that under my own wing. I want to, like, I'm not going to listen to them like, oh yeah, you could raise rents and this and that and that. Like I might glance at that, but I'm going to validate all that. Like what could I actually jack the rents up to? Does it actually make sense to do all the kitchens, stuff like that. So pro forma, some of the, on bigger stuff, large multi, this is where you start to find pro formas. I'd say when you're like 20 units plus, it becomes more of a common thing. When you're 80 to 100 units plus, then you're almost going to find that on every deal. All right. So any questions on what we've covered so far? Any questions? This is for small multi rental properties, right? Yep. No. All right. So what it could also say, and Cedillo, if I'm saying your name right, I'm sorry. You got a question?
Yeah, I just got off the phone with a multi-deal owner finance, and he said the agent said that they do not have a P&L, no rent roll, nothing. He doesn't know how he collects the rent. So what?
Well, that's exactly where I'm going now.
Okay.
And sorry, Jesse.
Perfect timing.
You threw me off.
Okay.
I'm with you. All right. So all right. Let's talk on that. So what Jesse's saying, like when people don't have these docs, right? Oh yeah, I don't have a P&L or a rent roll. That is going to be pretty common on small multi, 2 units, 3, 4, maybe. I mean, all the way up to like 30 units. I've seen a guy like, yeah, I got a 30 unit I want to sell. I'm like, you got numbers on it? No. Like just so sloppy. Really, is like, what? How this person even buy that? Then they don't even know what they're doing. So when you end up in those situations, this is where it kind of sucks, but we have to get all of the information. So like I told you guys, the most important thing is the profit and loss. That shows gross expenses and then the net, the performance, right? So basically when a seller has no docs, we're looking to create a P&L on our own. So I'm going to create the P&L. I'm going to try and figure out what is the gross income for the past 12 months, what are the expenses for the past 12 months, and then what is the net income, right? So I just got to create it. It's not rocket science, right? So all I got to figure out is gross income. If you guys see my screen, and then I got to figure out expenses. I don't know why I did that. Hold on. Jeez. There we go. So gross income and expenses. So if I ask an agent, I'm like, hey, yo, Mark, you got a P&L you could send me? No, this guy, he's terrible with financials. You know, he doesn't track any of that. All right, no problem. What is each unit rented for? Right. So how many units are they and what are they rented for? And then I'm going to total that up. And when I analyze this, I like to analyze it off of the monthly first. So this is all monthly. So unit 1 is 500, unit 2 is 1,000, unit 3 is this, blah, 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 blah. All right, great. So if everything was occupied, I'd be looking at a total gross income of, let's say, $10,000. You know, if you guys call what I just said, off of if everything is analyzed. So if I'm speaking to somebody that's got a 4-unit building and they're like, yeah, we just renovated 3 of them, they're still vacant, only 1 is occupied. Well, I'm analyzing it off of what would the gross income be on all units occupied. Very important. So, 3 are vacant. What would they rent for? Don't just take their word, comp it out too, like we spoke about, right? Plug it in Rentometer, go on Zillow, look at other rentals in the area. Can I actually get what this person's saying? A lot of these agents, they'll jack it up. Yeah, you could probably get like 1,500 a unit. You can only really get 12, right? So it's important we do our own homework. What can this thing perform as, fully occupied? So was it rented previously? What was it going for? That's a question you could ask. So we get that number. Okay, great. If it's fully occupied, this thing's pumping in $10,000 a month. Sweet. Simple. Now I just got to get the expenses. And we spoke about that on Tuesday's Zoom about underwriting, right? Expenses being what? Some of the hard expenses. First is going to be taxes. Yeah, taxes that's like $300 a month. Now, if they give you annual numbers, which they will, yeah, the taxes that's coming out to $8,000 a year, insurance comes out to $5,000 a year. Break it out. Just divide those numbers by 12 to get the monthly. So we're going to take out. Now we're just listing all expenses right up in here. All expenses. So we got taxes, we got insurance. Let's say we spoke to them. That's going to be another $300. We got maintenance. Now, some of these numbers, if it looks true, like it's like at least 12 months of it, and it doesn't seem fluffed or like BS, then I'll roll off of their number. So, all right, yeah, they're floating between $300 a month. If there's no numbers for maintenance, like if we ask the person, hey, what's the maintenance? And they don't know. I don't know. I'd probably factor in maybe between 3 and 5% for maintenance, somewhere up in there. So let's say that was the case. I'll factor in another 5%. That's going to be $500. Right? Yeah. So we'll put that away. And the other expenses, just to keep in mind, right? If this was in an HOA, then that's going to be an expense. If it's a 4-unit building and there's some common hallway, right, and the owner's paying some light in the hallway, that's going to be an expense. Even if it's $20 a month that the owner pays for that little light outside or whatever, that's an expense. If the owner's paying, hey, yeah, owner pays electric because it's not separated on all 4 units, that's going to be an expense. Trying to think if there's anything we're missing here. Tax, insurance, maintenance, utilities, water, sewer, trash, right? Stuff like that. Just validate who's paying that type of stuff. And that's really it. So just think of all these different expenses, and if they apply, tax, insurance, maintenance, that's every single time. And then what we're really doing in our underwriting, roof, HVAC, right? So actually no repairs are getting plugged into this though, Joe. I see that DM. So repairs do not get plugged into that. Now, what we do want to do is, because we're properly underwriting it, is we're going to factor in the vacancy, and then we're going to factor in the CapEx. Do you guys remember what percentage for vacancy?
27.
How much?
10.
And
10%. So we're looking at $1,000 coming out for that. Cool. Capital expenditures. You guys remember the rule?
I think 15 to 20. Oh, yeah.
Close. Anybody remember the rule?
No.
If everything was replaced recently and it's all like newer, it's 10%. If you're looking at, in the next couple of years, you're going to need, HVAC, air conditioning, roof, then you want to float between 15 and 20.
Yeah, perfect. So good shape, 10, bad shape, 20. You can play between those. Let's say it's in good shape, really good shape. So we're only going to play 10%. This is going to be another $1,000 coming out of the equation. This is where things are going to start to get maybe a little bit deeper in a minute here. So just really stay with me, guys. Try and pay attention to this. So now we could run the math to see what is the supposed net income, but this isn't the true net income for our deal just yet, right? And let's pretend this is a bigger thing, right? It's 4 to 10 units, maybe somewhere in there. It doesn't matter, but it's not one door. It's several. So now let's run these numbers. Let's see what we're left with the supposed net income. And you guys let me know what you get. I don't got my phone.
31.
$6,900.
$6,900.
How much?
6,900.
6,900. Cool. All right, so 6,900 appears to be the net. Now, what I just want to point out is a lot of these agents, when they're showing you the net, they are not factoring in on that P&L vacancy, and they're not factoring in capital expenditures. So they're running around saying
It's snowing.
it's $6,900 is what this thing pulls in, but that's not the reality. Once you factor in vacancy and capex, it's 69 instead of 8,900 without vacancy and capex. So right there, that gives you ammo. If you just plug in those two, hey, your net's automatically off. You could tell the real estate agent.
It's snowing like a bee.
All right, so let's continue. Now, this is where it's going to get a little deeper. I don't know if you guys want to take a screenshot of this or a picture, because we're going to leave this right now. I'll give you guys a second. You might just want to reference back to it. I don't know. Up to you guys. All right. Hopefully we all got that. So now what we need to do, this is the point I want to make to you guys. If a property is not, let me say this, ready? So if we're looking at a multifamily, any size, and it is extremely beat up, investors, they're going to do one of two things. They're either going to flip the multifamily, and that's what most of them are going to do, or they're going to do a BRRRR, right? So, hey, I'll go in, I'll fully update it, I'll refinance, I'll keep the property. So more times than not, like on these multifamilies, these buyers, they're not paying cash for the property. More times than not, they're going to go try and secure financing. And if they do pay cash in the beginning, they're definitely either not staying in the deal, so they're either looking to flip it, or if they do cash in the beginning, sorry, Google Voice is going nuts. Or if they do cash in the beginning, then they're going to look to BRRRR. So they're looking to secure financing at some point in time. If they flip it, then down the road, very soon, they're going to get financing. Or they're going to buy it off rip with financing. So the point I'm trying to make right now to you guys is you're almost always on larger multis going to be factoring in debt into this equation. And when you factor in the debt, as you guys are about to see, this tends to kill the cash flow in a deal. Or throws the seller completely off from what the agent and seller were thinking it's worth, right? Yeah, it makes $6,900 a month, but look, once you factor in the debt, it makes nothing. I lose money. So how can I make sense of paying you this price when it loses money every single month? How is anybody going to make sense of that? And in my experience, more times than not, when I'm in that position, they just blank out. They got nothing to say. They're like, oh, because they don't know how to properly underwrite. And then when you show them and you show them the deal makes no money, they're speechless. And then all right, so what price are you thinking? And then you got them right where you want them. So watch this. Let's say, something making $10,000 a month gross, 120 a year. I mean, that's $1 million property. That's 1.2 right there, following the 1% rule. So this would be a $1.2 million property, 1.2. So now let's do this. Watch this.
You were on a roll and then just.
I know.
Oh, fuck no.
Everybody a minute. My bad, guys. Sorry.
Give everybody the boot.
It's the second time I've done that. I tried ending the whiteboard, shut the whole thing down. I was just like, oh, where'd everybody go? All right. Let me pull up what I'm going to share with you guys.
Is that your acquisitions team?
Boy, it's snow and snow.
Who?
It even snowed in New Mexico.
And I put a screenshot of the whiteboard
It's
in
snowing in Arkansas.
general chat also.
Wait, is Eric gone?
No, I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, I heard watch this and everything got silent and I got kicked out. I was so confused. I was like, is that some sort of cruel joke?
Yeah, my bad. Sorry, Josh. Sorry, man.
Yeah.
All right.
Early April Fools.
I think we got everybody back. Hopefully. My bad. All right. So, let's get back into it. So, what we're talking about is that deal, right? $6,900. Cool. Yeah, looks like a good net. But once you factor in the debt payment, that I guarantee is going to disappear or almost disappear. So, watch this. If somebody, and remember, we're wholesaling these deals. So, you got to run these numbers in the math of your actual end buyer doing the deal. So, let's go 1, 2. 28. I'm off on the mental mat. 960 is what the bank would be financing. I'm just gonna mute everybody. There we go. If you guys have a question, just unmute. So the bank, so if we buy this thing for 960,000, they're going to be getting a commercial loan that's standard on anything above 4 units. For the most part, that's what they're going for. And you're going to be looking at roughly 20% down. The higher you go, the more down. So if I'm going to go pick up a 30 unit, the bank might want, easily a 30% down payment. Because we're speaking in terms of small multi, we'll roll off a 20% down. So if I buy it for, if somebody buys it for 1.2 million, the bank's going to finance 80% of that, and that's going to be 960,000 that's getting financed. Right, so 960 is financed. Now on commercial loans, pay attention to this. They're amortized over a 20-year term. So on single family, it's a 30-year. Commercial, it's going to be 20. So we're going to plug in 20 years here. And then the going interest rate, I think we're floating between 6.5%. Maybe a buyer is going to see 7, but let's roll on 6. And it spits out the payment. Look at this. $6,900 is what your debt payment is. So if you guys were to go back and look at that photo, right, of what we just did, the whiteboard, we were left with 69. After I pay this, what am I really left with? $13 or $23? Nothing. You're left with nothing. It's a wash. So like this seller, I'd have to tell him like, yo, you sent me the P&L. Your P&L shows that it makes 69, but after a debt payment, after capital expenditures, after vacancy, I make $23 on this. They're gonna be like, so the only thing we could do now I'm in a perfect position to justify why I need to be lower on the price. Dude, I got to be lower on the price. I can't pay 960 because it doesn't make any money. So now I'll just say the way we figure out what price we could pay is we try and create the cash flow. So 2 things we could do on this amortization to create cash flow. Really what we're looking at to create the cash flow, I'll say this first. What we're looking at to generate cash flow to create that is to lower the debt payment, right? If we lower the debt payment, poof, now we're in the green. Now we're making money. So to lower the debt payment comes down to one of 2 things. You either lower the interest rate, right? So if it goes to 6 to 3, that takes it down to 53 for the payment. Or you lower the purchase. Now, remember, these guys, they're going to the bank, so they're not going to go get a 3% rate. So the only thing we really can do is lower the purchase. So hey, I can't make sense at 9. I can't make sense at 1.2. There's no cash flow on the deal. So now for us, it kind of just becomes plug and play, right? So if our buyer, let's say we buy, hey, we'll do $1 million. So all right, we're only going to do $1 million. That means the bank is going to finance 800 to us. Still at 6%. So now it drops from $6,900 to 57. So it drops almost $1,200. So, all right, now we got $1,200 in profit. And then it becomes now we got to start looking at the cash on cash. So, all right, $1,200. But before we get even deeper into this, does anybody have any questions or need me to repeat anything? because it's about to get a little deeper here. Anybody like not with me?
We're all good, I think.
We're all good. Okay. All right. I like the sound of that. And for those of you guys that are new, if you're like totally lost, that's fine. That's normal. This is not the easiest thing to pick up on right away. So, all right. So now we got to look at the cash on cash return. So this is simple stuff, right? The cash on cash return, no matter what the deal is, all you're doing is you're taking your true net and you're dividing that into how much cash you have in the deal. Right. So right now with this deal, we said, all right, if we could buy it for $1 million, then only finance 8, and then we can make $1,200 a month. So we're going to find the cash on cash, that's always based on annual numbers. So what is our net income annually? And then divide that by how much cash do I have in the deal. So if it makes a net $1,200, if somebody could do it for me, do $1,200 times 12 months, and that is our net income for the year.
14,400.
And that's also, just for knowledge for you guys, that's also known as your NOI. That's your net operating income. All right. So net income 14.4 is what we're looking at, 14,400. Now we're going to divide that into how much cash we have in the deal, or obviously the investor would have in the deal, and that's going to spit out the percentage, the cash on cash return. So we got to figure out how much cash do I have in the deal. Well, I got 200,000 for a down payment, right? I buy it for $1 million. Bank gives me 800. I got to show up with 20%, 200. So I got 200 in the deal. I got closing costs. That's going to be 2 to 3%, maybe somewhere up in there on the $1 million. So boom, right there, maybe 250 into the deal, getting going, conservative, lender fees too, all that stuff. So say I'm in it for 250. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 14.4. So take that 14.4 number and divide that into the cash we have. So divide that into the 250, and it's going to spit out the cash on cash return. You guys tell me what you get.
5.76%.
0.05.
Yeah, 0.0576.
Anybody get that same number just to validate? Yeah. All right, sweet. So we're looking at a 5% cash on cash. Terrible, really bad. So we need to create more cash flow. So we got to lower that price even more. That's what we're left at. Now, if you guys want to write this down, a simple rule of thumb is seasoned people with deeper pockets, they're going to be just fine with a 10% cash on cash return. The other rule, or just something to keep in mind too, as you scale up in units, you can expect your cap rate and your cash on cash to, decrease, right? So I can't expect to go pick up a 100-unit building and expect to get a 30% cash on cash. That's not going to happen. Even a 6% cash on cash or a 3% cash on cash, depending on the size, that might be a great deal too. So just keep that in mind. But on multis, you're looking at 10% being the absolute bare minimum for cash on cash. Now, that could also vary in the market too. If I'm buying expensive single families down here for rentals, I'm going to have a much lower cash rate or cash flow percentage than buying rentals that are dirt cheap up in Pennsylvania, right? So like the cheaper the property, more times than not, you could expect a higher cash on cash, but 10 tends to be the minimum. So like with where we're at right now, we're at 5%. So I need to get this to at least 10% and see if the seller would entertain that, but we don't know what number that's at. So let's say, so again, just plug and play once again. We can't buy it for $1 million because it's just not enough cash flow. It's too low of a return. So what if we buy this thing for 800,000, bank is going to be financing 80% of that. I'm off on mental math, so we're going to do the 640. So that means the bank is now
160,000 out of pocket.
Is that what it comes out to?
Yeah.
Yep. So 640,000 is what the bank is financing. That drops the payment to 45, or call it 4,600. So let's do the math on that. From what we say, 69 to 45 is what, $1,500, $1,600?
23. You said 4,600.
46 to
So that'd be
Yeah.
2,300.
23. Okay. So now do 23 on 12 months, and that comes out to
27,600.
so that is our 27.6. So 27.6, that is our annual net income. So now let's take that new net income if we got this deal of the 27.6 and let's divide that into how much cash we have. So closing cost, that's going to go less. Let's say maybe 20 to close out the deal, something like that. And then let's call it we're buying it for 8, so that's going to be what, another $1.60. Call it 190 all in cash to acquire the deal. So do your 27.6 divided by into the 190, and then what percentage do we get?
14.5.
Beautiful. Yeah, so 14.5. That's a good cash on cash for a multifamily. Again, depending on the market and other variables, but overall, in general, that's a good cash on cash for multi. So that's a deal. So now we got our deal. The deal is what? 800,000 is what we'll buy it for, and I'm going to go get a loan to buy it. That's it. Done. Now, when you guys are making cash offers or wholesale offers, right, on multis, if it's 4 units or more, or I'd say 400,000 as a figure and more, don't pitch cash like, hey, this is going to be a cash deal. Tell them, hey, we're probably going to get financing, but we're not going to make the deal contingent upon financing. So what that does is it just opens up the options for the buyer. Like if John, the buyer that I am telling him the deal about, if he wants it and he wants to get financing, he could do that. If he wants to do cash and then refi down the road, he could do that too. But we want to make sure that we leave financing just an available option for the buyers that we're looking to wholesale these to. Does that make sense? Any questions there, or any questions in general with any of this?
So that would just be an addendum in the contract, the same wholesale contract?
Yeah, like if we're dealing with the agents and they're using the state contract, then we're just going to tell them, hey, financing is an option, but it's not going to be contingent on that.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Does that typically raise any red flags with the agent? Do they like say, oh, well, why would you want to, make it not contingent on that? Or not really?
No, not really. Because what if somebody says like, oh, because the other thing too is if you make it contingent upon financing, then you might have to produce a pre-approval, within the first 3 days or something like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right, so let's see if we could just like recap kind of what we talked about with all this underwriting stuff. So remember, like, to try and simplify everything, the big thing is first determining the NOI, the net operating income, and that's simply determined through the P&L, analyzing their P&L. If they don't have one, then we analyze our own, and that just comes down to gross income. What is the total gross income if everything was occupied, minus all expenses, including vacancy and CapEx. And then we get our NOI, and then that's it. So, I mean, it's simple math. Gross income minus expenses equals net operating income. And then what is our cash on cash return? Once we get the NOI, then we can figure out cash on cash. We just take NOI and we divide that into how much cash is in the deal. And that's just down payment, closing costs, lender fees. That's it. That's going to be the only cash in the deal for acquiring it, as long as we don't have to do reno. Now, if the property needed, say, $30,000 to get all the units occupied, you're going to tie that into this equation too, right? That will factor into your expenses. So if we're like, hey, it's going to be $30,000 to finish the units, and then we can rent it all, factor that in too, because again, that's playing into your cash on cash return. If I don't factor in the reno, and then I put 50 into it, I'm like deceiving myself as to what the actual return on investment is. So it's really just that. What is our net income? Their P&L will spit it out. Just make sure everything's factored in, because most of the time they don't. And then formulate the cash on cash. Any questions on that?
You said that's for like 5 units and above?
even a 4 unit, I'd probably analyze it like this too. But
Okay.
when I'm looking at 4 units and stuff like that, I could also 4 and under. I could actually comp with other 4 units too. So I can go kind of wide in my city, a decent amount wider than you would normally do to find like an ARV, and then I could just look for other 4 units too. So check this out, just to show you guys something quick. If I was on Zillow here, I'll erase all that in a second. But if I'm right up in here, what I could do is just come into home type, deselect everything, and then just select multi. And you could be wide. You don't have to be, if there's a wholesale deal, we'd stay like this tight, nothing wider. But on creative finance, go as far as you need. Obviously, the closer, the more accurate it's going to be. But just try and get an idea of what other multis are selling for too. Sometimes too, closer, like I'm saying, is always better. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll use a closer comp that's maybe a little off. So maybe the subject property is 4 units. And the only other 4 unit I can find is like way on the other side of town, but I see a 2 or a 3 unit that's much closer. So I might analyze the 2 unit and then just double it. Like, all right, the 2 unit, that thing sold for $150. I'm looking at a 4 unit. Let me times that by 2. Boom. And then, I got some sort of rough idea numbers wise. The other thing I like to do is sometimes you can get an average of the cost per unit. That's also really important. That also goes back to why I tell you guys, like, stay in one market because you'll learn a lot, and that ties into learning the cost per unit. Like down here in Tampa, you could find stuff that's $200 a unit, and then when somebody tells me, "Oh, I got an 8 unit on this side of town," I already know what it's worth. It's going for maybe $200 a door. You're telling me it's $8. Boom, 1.6. That's probably what it's valued at. So if you really stay in your market, you'll start to pick up what is the average cost per unit, and that just really helps speed all this up. Really determining what's a good deal and a bad deal, overpriced or not.
Now, I had another question for the financing on the 4 unit. Usually, an FHA or something like that can go for the 30 years, right? So would you restructure your underwriting to match the 30, or would you stick with the 20 and keep it conservative?
Well, so that's kind of what I'm saying, Jesus, is like most of the 4 units and under are analyzed based on actual comps, other 4 units that are selling. Once you pass that, 5 and up, it's really more so going to be underwriting. How does the property perform?
Gotcha.
Give you some context with that. So I think part of the reason why that is the way it is because like 4 units, like you just said, people qualify that falls under, FHA guidelines. So somebody can get an FHA loan and pick up a 4 unit. And then what happens is a lot of those smaller units, people look to house hack and they can start to justify the price a little more. Like, I'm not looking at it as a cash flow investment. I'm going to live in it, and if I can break even, I'm good. And that allows for somebody else to pay quite a bit more than a cash flow investor would, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So that's kind of what's going on there. All right. Any other questions before we pivot into lead generation? Are we feeling good?
Yeah, pretty good.
All right.
Thank you.
Definitely. All right. Let's see. Let's see if you guys have a preference. Put a 1 in the chat if you want to start with lead gen on wholesale. 2 in the chat, lead gen on creative.
What was the question again?
Don't even
I
worry.
missed it.
We're gonna cover both. It seems like we're pretty even.
Okay.
Just what you guys wanted to start with. We'll talk on
Yeah, definitely cover it all.
we'll talk on lead gen with wholesale. We'll start there.
Sweet.
All right. So we're just we'll focus on just data, discussing data and lead gen. Like I always say, for those of you guys that are new, I never really recommend starting with spending money. I just don't think it's needed. Most people can get their first deal through the free stuff. So if you close the deal or you really do want to start spending money, data is the way to do it. So, for anybody that's not familiar, data is just putting together a list of people, and try and just think of it like in that context. So we're able to filter people, and I'm going to show you the filters, but I could put together a list and filter all the foreclosed homes in Tampa, or all the vacant homes in Tampa, or all the sellers in Tampa that have tax liens, right? And so in essence, what we're looking to do is put together a list and then market to these people, right? And see if they want to sell. So these people aren't saying, hey, I want to sell. We're calling them to find out. This is off-market leads. Nice part about off-market and doing stuff like this, couple of things. One, very little competition. It costs money. Most people in this game, they're either just starting, so they're doing the freer stuff, free strategies and whatnot. So just less competition, and it's not on market, so it's not like I got 10 other people I'm competing against. I'm calling them and they're like, yeah, I'll sell my house. I've been thinking about it. Perfect. So that's another nice part about playing with data. One last little thing is the scalability aspect to it. So excuse me. When I first got into the wholesale game, on market deals like that didn't exist. That never existed, where like somebody was doing wholesale deals on market. So my first, I don't know, 5 to 7 years, something like that, it was only off market. It was my entire business. And it's still really important. So what's really cool, I guess one of the points I want to make with data is this is how we actually are able to control and predict our income to an extent. Once you figure out what data works best in your market, then it's rinse and repeat, because then I could say, hey, if I spend $1,000 on data, I know I can get one deal out of that, and that's going to be 10 grand on average. All right, great. So if I spend $2,000 on data, then I should be doing 20,000 a month, 2 deals each month. And then it becomes predictable and scalable, right? So I started with data on my own. I'm like, oh, this is great. Let me get a VA. All right, here's what I'm capable of doing with the VA. Let me get 2. Let me start buying 2 lists every single month. Give it to 2 VAs. Boom, started doing even more deals, starting doubling up. So this is how we could actually predict and control our income. It's an amazing thing to be able to say, I know if I invest this, I'll get this as a return, right? So it's really cool in that sense. So when it comes to data, we're just going to talk for a quick minute on this, and then we'll start going over it, but this is very important. So this is all in the course, but when it comes to data, there's 2 different pieces to data. You have what's called wide data, and you have what's called deep data. Deep data is going to be where there's people in a distressed pain point. Like there's pain attached to these people. That could be stuff like foreclosure, pre-foreclosure. The house is set to go to auction. Tax delinquents, maybe a little bit of probate could filter into what's called deep data. So there's an identifiable piece of pain attached to this person, potentially high odds of them in a distressed situation. Then you have what's called wide data, and this is going to be much larger. So when we do deep data, if I try and put together a list in the whole city of Tampa of all the auction properties, that's going to be small. That's going to be a few hundred records, right? So always think of deep data because it's heavily niched. It's going to be a lot fewer records, and fewer really is like 1,000 or less. So think in those terms, in numbers. Don't think of few as 10 people. That's nothing. So a little is 1,000 or less. Wide data, there's no pain attached to this person. So this could be a list of vacant homes. All right, it's vacant. They might be freaking a billionaire and they don't have to sell it, right? Or an absentee owner. They own the home, but they don't live in it. That's an absentee owner. Maybe they'll sell it, right? So why there's not necessarily a pain point attached, and it's going to always be much larger chunks of data. I mean, it's just common sense, right? A list of auction properties is obviously going to be much, much smaller than homes owned in the city, and they don't live there. It's like a second home or whatever, right? So wide data, it's always going to be much bigger. Wide data, because it's much bigger, obviously comes with it's costing more money. I mean, common sense, right? Bigger the list, the more money it's going to be. So my recommendation is always start with the deep data when you're trying to scale up your budget. Start with the deep data and try and do that consistently, pulling those lists. With the deep data, again, it's less of an ad spend. It's a lot less people you got to talk to. If I go to Allentown, there might only be 50 people that are set to go to auction, and I might actually get a deal out of those 50 people. One of those might just convert. But if I go wide, I might have 1,000 people, and maybe I only get one deal out of that. right? So it could be a lot less effort and a lot less money to be able to put those or to do a deep data list in the beginning. Eventually you guys will all, as you start playing this game, there's not going to be enough deep data to run a consistent business off of and scalable. It doesn't be deep data is not scalable because it's such few records. So if I pull an auction list today of all 50 auctions in Allentown, PA, well, when I go do that next month, there might only be 5 to 15 added, maybe only 2 added, or maybe none. You know what I mean? So this is something you're consistently doing, but don't think like, all right, hey, let me just try and get more deep data, because there's only so much of it. So deep data is going to be a staple piece in the business, and it's going to be a repetitive piece of marketing, but it's not going to be, not all your eggs are going in that basket, if that makes sense. Any questions on anything that I've talked about so far? This all making sense? All right. One last piece, and then I'm going to show you some stuff. So I want to paint this perspective too. When it comes to wide data, there's power in it, right? So when I pull a list, if I go on any of these platforms and I pull a list of 1,000 vacant properties, well, I promise you, out of those 1,000 vacant properties, there's going to be ones that are obviously vacant. They're all vacant, but they're vacant and pre-foreclosure, vacant and they're set to go to auction, vacant and tax delinquent. So when I pull a large set of data, I will capture some of these people with those deeper pain points. That's what's kind of cool. The other thing, this is what's even cooler. Out of those 1,000 people, we're going to find people in a distressed, real bad situation that couldn't have been filtered for. So that could be somebody where the house is vacant. That's the list that I pulled. But man, they need money quick because they got this going on in their life. I need to sell this fast. I got a lot of pain here, and it's something I couldn't filter for. And there's so many deals like that where it's like, bro, there's no way I could have filtered for that person. And so that's what's going to happen. When you start pulling wider and wider data, you're going to come across pain points that aren't filterable. So just keep that in mind. Any questions, anything before we get into actually pulling data? You guys scare me. You guys are so quiet. Is this like, you guys want to hear this stuff? Like, is this good stuff for you guys?
Real good.
All right. I don't know. Like, if you guys want to go to deals, we could do that too. All right. Let's dive into like actually putting together these types of lists. Let me pull it up. Alrighty. So, many platforms, right? You got auto leads to put together data. You got PropStream. You got batch leads. You got, there's so many out there. Everybody's coming up with a data provider now. So this, just for you guys that are new to the group, this is a platform that I built. So I'm a little biased towards it. I'm no longer an owner of this company, so I'm not getting paid to push you guys here. But the platform's really cool. A lot of good features, and what's really cool, just to throw it out to you guys, they just tapped into a better data source. I can't disclose who it is. My new opinion is now it definitely smokes Prop and BatchStream, who they're tapped into, because I already know who Batch and PropStream are tapped into too. So I just want to put that out there. If you guys used it in the past, I think the data was so-so. I was a fan until I started using it a lot. I'm like, I don't think it's the best. But now I'm really standing behind the data that they got. Better skip trace records, just everything, which is good. So let's talk about the data, right? So really what I would do when it comes to data, we're putting together a list. So let's talk about deep data lists. So I would start by searching my city. If you guys, I don't see the chat, guys. So if you guys have questions, just interrupt me. But I would hone in on the city, and you don't really want to do it city by city. My preference, I love the draw tool here. I could just draw the whole market. So your entire market, which should consist anywhere from like 3 to 4 counties that all touch, kind of like that. Boom, got the market honed in, perfect.
I'm sorry, I missed what app you're using, or what website.
This is autoleads.ai. They do.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat for everybody too. The link, it's right there. Cool, awesome. So we got the market circled just like that, and so let's focus on deep data to start. So when I'm doing data, always start with off market. Remember what I said earlier. We're going to do a deep source of lead generation, but we're also going to continue with the on market stuff. So why are we going to spend money on on market when I could just hand out those people? I'm going to do it anyways. So off market, that's like a standard rule playing with data. Very few times there's an exception on the creative finance side, but wholesale always off market. Then you're always going to come into the filters. And what I always like to do is start with owner type individual. So don't necessarily worry about trying to remember how to get to these filters. If anything, guys, I would just jot down which general filters I'm playing with. So off market, individually owned. It's not owned by an LLC. That's the big thing. And then, like I said, we're starting with hot data. Some of the deeper stuff here. So let's start with active auction. So boom, I select active auction and look at this. Only 18 properties came back. So for those of you guys that have a very little budget, it only costs 10 cents a record. So what am I looking at? $1.80 to skip trace 18. All right. If I'm doing that math right, $1.80, $2, with tax. So it costs nothing. I mean, obviously you might have to pay for, platform access, but if you guys go to Jerry Norton's platform, I think it's free for the data, and then you just pay for the skip. So could be a way to do it with a budget less than $5, and you got a good shot at all 18. So boom, I would pull this entire list. All we did again, off market, individually owned, in active auction. Now I will say this, I caught myself slipping. So anytime I'm dealing with a foreclosure, a pre-foreclosure, or an active auction, I don't care who the owner is. I don't care if you're an LLC, because you're set to lose the home. You have to sell this thing. So I'm actually going to turn that off, and we might see a jump. Yeah, look, it goes from 18 to 23 properties. We got a few more. Sweet. So I would pull that list. Again, off market and active auction. That is all we did. Second list, this is a brand new list now. We're going to leave the off market, and I'm going to turn off that active auction. So all we have right now is off market as a filter. And I'm going to go to foreclosure status, and I'm going to do notice of default, notice of list pendants, and notice of trustee sale. All three of these, just to keep things super simple, just look at all three as their pre-foreclosures. They're behind, and very soon it's probably going to get set to go to auction. The bank's going to foreclose on these people. So great list. So all three of these now is very important that we select up to a year ago for the recording date. So because what could happen is, and this happens on all platforms, if I select pre-foreclosures like we just did, those three options, if I select pre-foreclosures, it will probably populate pre-foreclosures that were in the past. So it was a pre-foreclosure, but it got foreclosed on, or it sold at the auction, but it's still, for whatever reason, in public record, it's still holding that tag. So what I do is I always select up to a year ago, so I know it's fresh, recently recorded. After a year, the bank probably had foreclosed at that point. And then what I also do is I go to ownership, and I do a minimum of 1 year owned. And what that's going to do is eliminate anything that got sold at auction, right? So it's going to produce all the current pre-foreclosures. So I selected pre-foreclosure. I did a minimum of 1 year owned, and I did recording date for the pre-foreclosure, recording date up to a year ago. Auto lead, some of these features are a little stupid. They make you put in a max, so I would just put in 100 year zone, something like that. And it would do it. And then boom, as we see right here, 714 properties are in pre-foreclosure, and that's an excellent list to pull, start calling them. Before we keep going, any questions on what you guys seen so far, or need to see anything again? This is all making sense?
Quick question.
Yeah.
If we're doing foreclosure though, but isn't that just public information? So can we just get that from the county? Or from somewhere besides trying to, go through all this, but.
Yeah, yes and no. Could you get it from the county? I think that's way more work, and they're going to charge you for that too. They're definitely going to charge you more than what it would cost to do it on here. And the other thing too is like, sometimes check this out, guys. If you're on Zillow, I go into my market. If I come over here and I try and look at foreclosures, or even this, look at this, pre-foreclosures and auctions. If I do these, it shows 4 results, which is wrong. There's more than 4, as we just saw, from actual data. But then what I've also realized is some of these on Zillow that populate as pre-foreclosures and auction homes actually aren't. I'll skip trace and call the owner, and they're like, dude, that went to the auction like last year. I'm like, oh, wow. And for whatever reason, Zillow still has it up as that. So I always find like the best data is going to be right from the county, really. And these data platforms, they're all tapped into public records. So you could either go right to the source to public record, or do it on one of these sites here. But the county could give you a lot of trouble. They could definitely charge you, all that stuff.
Hey, quick question.
Yes.
Alrighty. So as far as like the pre-closures go, would we be like doing like a subject to or a wholesale deal for these properties
That's
here?
actually another excellent question. I'm glad you brought that up. All right, so this is also really, really important. Almost totally forgot about this. So if we're wholesaling, obviously we're going to need deals with equity, right? If they owe what it's worth, we can't wholesale that. So if you're only doing wholesale, I would come into valuation and equity, and I would do a minimum of 30%. So they got a minimum of 30% of equity. Now, the reason I do 30% is because that estimation is never, ever going to be right. I might plug in 30%, and they really have like 60%. So you kind of, and even if I did a max, so say I did like 30 on the dot, so it has to have exactly 30% equity. I might analyze these leads that come back. I'm like, nope, they got 80% of equity. That one's free and clear. So the reason for that, to kind of explain this a little bit, why this is never right, is because these equity percentages are based on the property's assessed value. So what the county thinks the property's worth. And then they're also basing it on how much equity they have from how much they paid down on their loan. Right. And that tends to be where things go wrong in both of those areas. So they're basing one of the factors in this equation, how they calculate this, is the property's assessed value. But the property could be assessed and they might not know the inside's fully updated, or they might not know of some addition or some major upgrade. And that's obviously going to increase the equity, how much equity that person has. And then here's the more important piece. So equity percentage, 30% of equity at least, more so what it's also basing it on is how much they've paid down their loan, right? So pay attention to this is important. And every loan that somebody gets is recorded. That becomes public record. And you can see the terms. What is the amount of debt that they got, how much finance, the interest rate, the term, right? Is it 20 years, 30 years? And basically what these platforms do is they just calculated, if the person paid $1,000 a month, then that means their loan balance is this and the assessed value is this. So this would be the equity gap. Do you guys follow me with that? So they paid $100,000, they've paid this much down, they paid $20,000 down, and it appraised this much based on numbers, county numbers. So the equity is this much. But so, like I said, the assessed can tweak that because they don't know exactly what's going on with the property. But what could also tweak that number, that equity estimation, is that loan balance. So this is really, really important too. Here's another thing I want you to pay attention to. When you guys are looking at property, like any of these deals, it's going to show a loan balance. All of these platforms, like estimated loan balance, 110,000. That estimation, more times than not, is not going to be right. And the reason for that, a couple things. So, like I said, they're basing that loan estimation, that debt balance estimation, off of what the loan was originally paid or pulled out for, and then if everything went perfect. But that loan estimation can tweak if the seller missed a couple payments. Then obviously the balance is going to be higher. If the loan had an adjustable rate, so they had 3%, then the rates went up to 6%. Now a whole lot less is going to the principal balance, so they're paying down their loan even slower. The loan can go into forbearance where payments just completely stop for maybe a year. That would totally, then they definitely owe more than what the estimation is. And when those things happen, when somebody stops paying their loan, or the rate goes up, or the house goes into forbearance, or somebody does a loan modification, those things don't get recorded, right? So that's why that number doesn't tweak. If somebody stops making the mortgage payment, these platforms, they're not going to adjust, that estimated balance, because they know that John Smith stopped paying it for 6 months. You kind of get that. So really, just keep it tight here. Really what I'm saying is the equity estimation, that's never going to be right. It could be close, but more times than not, it's not going to be accurate. Especially with these pre-foreclosures. So I like to plug in a minimum of 30%. Then I know I'm definitely in wholesale territory. I'm going to be able to do some deals here. So I plug in 30. If you're doing both, if you're doing wholesale and creative finance, then I really just don't, it doesn't matter to me, because it's such a small list to begin with. It's 700 records. What is that? $70 to skip trace. Probably at least one deal in there that's going to make me 10 plus grand. So, whatever. I'll pull the whole 714. And then you got creative finance deals in the mix too. So, any other questions on this before we keep going?
And so basically, if the equity is lower than 30%, you would do like a subject to for creative finance.
Then the odds of doing a wholesale on that are relatively low.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. All righty. Let's clear all these filters. All right. So other deep data that we talked about, right? Basic stuff. Oh wow, look at this. The first time I'm seeing it, they added the age filter. This was like my go-to for years. So this is amazing that they added this. This is sweet. So inheritance properties, right? People that inherited the home. So another set of, this is like where you're kind of playing between deep and wide data. So they inherited the home. That doesn't mean they have to sell the house. But you do find motivated people here, and it is a relatively smaller list, only 500 records. I could do inherited by an individual owner. I could do inherited with 30% of equity, stuff like that. I could do inherited and the home's vacant too, increase the odds of them wanting to sell it. So another little deep set of data inheritance question.
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
It's something a little off topic, but just a quick one. Have you ever heard of bond companies owning real estate and selling real estate?
Yeah, I think Sean Lee is into that, or was dabbling with that stuff for a little bit. Is Sean here?
I've probably seen him earlier, I think.
He was here earlier, yeah.
Question?
Oh, there he is.
Oh, there he is.
You want to ask it again?
Yeah. My phone's about to die, so if I disappear, y'all know why. But the question was if y'all know anything about anybody has any experience with bond companies and buying real estate off of them.
As in bail bonds?
Yeah, like bail bond companies.
Not per se bail bonds, but I know you can get a bunch of different lists through a bunch of different counties' websites with the lien and deed investing, tax liens, tax deeds.
Oh, okay. That's more like what they call certain different places call them different things, but it's like off the shelf type properties that most investors did passed on.
Well,
at the auction.
Essentially with tax lien and tax deed investing, it's very long-term investing where the county sets the payback requirements for the vouchers that you obtain and you pay off the person's taxes through the vouchers. Once you do, that starts a timer, and the county specifies the time limit that that homeowner has to pay you back with the interest that they have already assigned. If they do not, then you essentially get the property free and clear.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's like here in Texas, it's 25%, I think, a year.
Yeah,
And
it
then,
starts out at 25. It actually goes higher than that.
Yeah, it doubles, I think, the next year.
Correct. And I
So
think
it's
they have a 7-year claim, or no, I think Texas is 5 years. I think theirs is.
Yeah, but they would have to pay. Yeah, gotcha. Okay, no, I was just curious more about the bonds because I heard somebody saying something about that, and I was curious if anybody had any experience or dealing with them. But okay, that's all it was. Sorry,
No,
I'll let Eric get back on topic.
no, good question. Alrighty, let's cover a little bit of wide data then. Right, so wide data, simple stuff. Always doing off market, like we said. Coming to the all filters here, deep stuff. And so when it comes to wide data, I'm always going to be doing individual owner. I'm not going to deal with any LLCs here. And so you got options, right? I mean, one option would be a list of vacant properties. Now, as we see, I did individual owner and vacant, and that's 7,700 properties. I mean, that's a lot, much, much bigger. To me, that's still too big of a wide list. I want to try and filter it down a little bit more, find people that are motivated. So a couple things here. One, this goes back to me telling you guys again how important it is to stay in one market. And once you know that market, you'll know like where you're kind of doing deals at, what are most deals, what am I contracting them for and whatnot. And so when you know that type of stuff, I could do a maxed assessed value. And for me doing stuff, most of the stuff is under 400,000. I'll do a max of assessed value of 400,000. I'll do a minimum of 1,000. And look, it dropped it a lot, almost 1,400 properties it shaved off. So, those 1,400 properties, I know those are nice homes. I'm not going to be doing deals with that. So I just saved quite a bit right there. So shaved it down to 6,300. Decent, but maybe I shave it down a little bit more. Really just want to focus on wholesale. So I'm going to do a minimum of maybe 30% of equity. And we see that's going to drop it down to 6,000. So still a pretty good chunk. I'll increase this. Let me do a minimum of 60% of equity. 56, good list right here. It's getting pretty good. If I had a good budget, if the budget's there, I would rip on this. If the budget's not there to rip all 56, then just increase the equity. Go to 80% equity. Takes it down to 52. And then you could go all the way. A lot of this wide data is going to kind of be budget based. So, I could go in here and do free and clear. So it's individually owned, it's off market, it's vacant, and it's free and clear. And so boom, that drops it to 49. I like that. That's not a bad list. They got full equity, individually owned, and the house is vacant. So, these people should be pretty motivated. Now, obviously, the cheaper stuff, easier to sell for wholesale. 49 still pretty big. So if the budget wasn't there, I wanted a little smaller, I'll just decrease the assessed value. So let me do a max of 300,000 and it takes it from 49 to 44. Still pretty big. Let me do a max of 200,000 and so on and so forth. So, you kind of play with, I'd say, the main filters for wide data, most of the time it's going to be starting with, it's always going to start with off market and individually owned. And then it's always more times than not going to go to vacant or it's going to go to absentee owner. And then from there moving forward, if I need the list smaller, it comes down to me tweaking equity percentages and max assessed value to shorten that list. Right? Does that kind of make sense? So the main thing is I'm after a vacant and absentee. And then to handle the list size based on my budget, I'll tweak equity percentage and again, assessed value. Does that make sense? Or anybody have any questions there? For you guys that are new, you're probably like, what? Like, man, we covered a lot today.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you saying? You're saying why and what data? Why and big data?
Wide and deep. So deep is going to be smaller list because those are people with pain. So deep, again, that would be homes that are going to auction. There's only so many of those pre-foreclosures, stuff like that. Smaller list, a lot more pain attached. They got to sell it. Wide, a lot less pain, specific pain attached to them. So vacant, like, yeah, maybe they want to sell, maybe they don't though, so it's going to be a lot bigger list.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. So, big things with, again, like vacant and absentee, and then it's just these little things that we tweak to get the list size where we want it. So we did vacant. The only other tweak really on this would be the absentee, right? So when it comes to absentee owners, you have two. You have in-state and you have out-of-state. So again, absentee, that means they own the house, but they don't live there. So if it was an absentee in-state, they own a house in Tampa, but they live in St. Pete. Out-of-state would be obviously own the house in Tampa, but they live in Texas, right? So there could be some motivation there. Now, with the absentees, it's really important that you guys pay attention to the market you're in. So when I was in Pennsylvania, my small town, most of the absentee owners, they were rental properties, or like somebody inherited them, stuff like that. And so I was doing like a lot of deals with those people with absentees in that market. But when I came down to Florida and I'm like, yeah, dude, I've been for years making all this money with the absentees. Let me do some absentees here in Florida, here in Tampa. Nothing, like no leads, zero deals. It was terrible. And what I realized is, okay, absentees in PA, a lot of rental properties. Absentee owners here in Tampa, a lot of vacation homes. And that's what it was. They own the house, but it's a second home. Like, dude, I got a lot of money. I'm good, dude. I'm not in pain. And so I didn't convert. I didn't convert one deal off of absentee data down here in Florida. So just really think, who would this person be? These vacant homes over here, who would be the owner of these vacant homes? Is it more so investors or people well off, having a second home? Kind of like that. So really important that you pay attention to what market and who would, more so the absentee, right? Like who is this absentee owner? Who's the bulk of these people? You go to Akron or Cleveland, Ohio, 90% of those absentees are other investors. It's rentals for them. So just pay attention to the market. Any other questions, I guess? That's really it for data on wholesale. We got a little bit of time, so I could squeeze in creative finance quick. Any questions, I guess? No, feeling good. All right, let's talk on creative finance. This data can get pretty dirty when it comes to creative finance. I'll kind of just share some random stuff with you guys. Now, just remember too, like I've always said, I've never once in my life only pulled data or only did some sort of marketing just for creative finance. My business has always been, I'm going to focus on wholesale deals. When I can't convert a wholesale deal, then I'll offer them creative finance. That is how I got every property I've ever owned. Just always looked at it as wholesale, didn't work, pivoted into creative. So I would say like the exception to putting data together just for creative finance is if like that's all you want. You're like, yeah, I just want to get a house to live in for myself, or I just want to build a portfolio, or if that's just what you're primarily focused on, then I guess that's fine. But if you're wholesaling too, just do wholesale data and you'll get creative finance stuff out of that. All right, so when it comes to creative finance, there's a few things we could do. So, when it comes to creative, two options to play the game: seller finance deals or subject to take over the loan, or, obviously hybrids, a combination of both of those. So let's talk on sourcing good subject to deals, easy stuff. So watch this. I'm in my market, and this is going to be the time that I select on market. So these people, we know they got their hand up. Hey, I want to sell my house. Now, what I'm going to do is I want to try and filter for people that have negative equity. So no matter who buys the house, because they got no equity, they're walking away with no money, right? So that's kind of the goal with this. Talk these people on market with no equity into a subject to deal. So I would do, I'd probably do individually owned. or maybe not to start with. We'll leave that off to start. And all I'm really going to do is go to valuation and equity, and I want to find people with negative equity. Auto leads is a little funny. All of these platforms kind of get a little funny finding negative equity homes. So you got to kind of play with these numbers a little bit. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to do a max equity percentage of 1%. And I guess a minimum, I got to put a minimum in there. So I'll do 1%. So they got a max of 1% equity. And it's coming back with 15,000 properties. So actually, I don't think I don't think that's actually going to work. So if I were to click on that, oh, actually it might. It came back with 1. So we could probably tweak this too. But really what I'm doing is when you put together the filters, you want to test the data, make sure it's accurate. So what I want to look at here is what did they got it on the MLS for? What's nice about auto is it's going to show you. So 739,000 is what they got the home listed for. And then what I want to see is how much do they owe on the mortgage? So I'm going to come to mortgage info. And crap. Normally it's going to show you the estimated balance. It's not on this one, unless maybe it's in here. So, I mean, you could try and do the math if you really wanted to. So they pulled it out for 363,000. Looks like they actually pulled a new one. Then they got another 70. So they're probably owing maybe around 400. And they got it up for 7. So it appears that they got quite a bit of equity. Unless this 2's in a factor, unless they got all 3 pieces of debt, unless they owe maybe 3 on this, 70 here, 370, slap another 3 on there. So this actually might be right. They might have no equity in this house. So they're selling the house and they want to get out from under it. They're like, yo, I got no equity. I'm fine if I could just walk away. Right. So this might actually be exactly what we're looking for. Now, it only came back with 1 result. I would like definitely, obviously, more than 1. So if I go back into the filters, I can go to the valuation and equity. And because only 1 came back, I'm going to increase the max to 3%. And just remember, just because I plug in 3% doesn't mean they have equity, because all those different variables that we talked about earlier. So if I do 3%, a max of 3. Now look, boom, comes back with 62 properties. Perfect. Now, some of these people might have some equity, a little bit, but that's not the end of the world. I'm going to do a max of 2%. Let's see what it drops it to, 21. So let me look at a few of these guys. Now, when I do this types of data, this isn't something I would necessarily pull and then put on a dialer. If I'm going to do this play, I'll probably just hand dial it. It's 21 properties. It's not going to take a lot of time. I'll just open them up, get the number, call them up. So let's just test it again, though. If we open this guy up, this person, they got it on the market for 539,000, and we see, look at this, they owe 529,000. They got 10,000 in equity. They just want to pay the agent's commission. This person, they know they're losing money on this deal. They know they got to pay the commission. They know they got to pay the closing costs, and that's more than their equity. So this seller, they're walking away with no money. And we already know they want to sell the house because it's on market. Do you guys see how powerful it is to use this type of data to hone in exactly on free real estate, creative finance deals that's sub 2 all day long? Any questions on this? We could look at one more. Ready? And it's not going to be like that for every single one. Just put it out there. Yes.
So on that last home, so say that it was basically, walk and drive after paying the 10K commission. So then depending on the seller finance or subject to, either way is keeping the seller bound to that property. So it only depends on if they want to wash their hands with it, as if that'll go through or not.
Yeah. And keep in mind too, like they got it up at that price or whatever that shows that they got 10K in equity, but the house might not actually be worth that. They might be forced, like, yo, we got to list it at this. That way we can cover this, and it might not even be worth that. So there might not be any money really going to the seller and only sub 2. And then that could put them in a position where they're kind of forced, like, hey, I can't sell it to somebody that will buy it outright because I owe more than what it's worth. Does that kind of make sense too? Hopefully you guys are with me there. So just, yeah, keep that in mind. Let's look at this one though. Just one more. MLS, they got it up for 375,000 and they owe 352 plus 18. I'm sure they paid down both of those by a little bit, but they're probably still floating around 360, I would imagine, maybe a little bit more. So this person probably owes around 360 and they put it on the market for, again, 375. Same thing. They just want to pay closing costs, commission. They're not expecting to make a penny off of this house. Now, the only thing that sucks about this is the only thing we got to worry about is the agent's commission, right? If no money's really going to the seller's pocket, then we got to worry about commission and closing cost. If we do an agreement for deed, closing costs disappear. So now we only got to worry about commission. We can negotiate that commission. And then more times than not, you can just wrap the deal. And that's going to be enough to get you in the house for free. So if they need to sell it, not just I want to, they're going to take the deal more times than not. And I'm telling you, you're going to find like, all right, this thing right here, they want 375. Let's throw it in on Zillow. 375. It's been on 71
I
days.
just got your call. How you doing?
Allie's hustling. I love it. But look what I'm pointing out. 71 days on market. That more times than not is pointing at they owe more than what it's worth. It's overpriced. And you might do that on a few of these and you're like, wow, this thing's been up for freaking 4 months. They still can't sell it. They can't sell it outright. Now you're really the only option. And because these aren't most of these, 99% of them, they're not listed as short sales, right? So you don't have people pitching them on sub 2 all day long, right? You might be the first one to pitch sub 2 on this. And it might be a nice house too. A wholesaler isn't calling on this to pitch sub 2. Nah, it's a nice house. They want top dollar for it. It's mint. They're not going to take my low cash offer. So like these wholesalers aren't pitching sub 2. They're not even touching these people. So it's like so fresh for us to touch and have that convo with the agent.
And it's something like that, Eric. Is like if they know they're walking away with nothing just to cover their agent's commissions. Is that where you go? I hear you a lot on TikTok and say, well, we'll put 10 grand in their pocket, and we'll do a subject to just to get them to walk away with something.
Not only when the agents are a little fun. Like you hear me say that on TikTok a lot, I'm sure. I only bring up that whole piece like, hey, we'll put money in the seller's pocket just to like hook the agent. If we can, like, yeah, sure, we will. But more times than not, I'll try and use that as like a selling point as to why, like, no, my seller doesn't want sub 2. We've turned down 5 of them. Well, I mean, what if I put 10 in the seller's pocket? Would they entertain them? And then boom, now they're on the hook, willing to listen to what I have to say. And if we can successfully do a low mod, then yeah, we can get them 10 more times than not. And if we can't give them 10 up front, we can give them 10 on payments. Seller finance the 10 to us. You're still getting 10.
Okay, so with that, it's just a subject to you're not putting anything down for them then.
No.
You're
Like
just
on
putting
these,
in there and taking over the mortgage payments.
Exactly. Yeah, I wouldn't pitch money down on any of these. It's the short sale agents that do a lot of short sales that get bombarded by subject to, but most agents don't on typical listings. Few and far between. So it should be like a new thing that they're open to exploring with you guys on these types of leads. Any question? Yeah, for sure. Any questions on this stuff? All right, sweet. Let's keep going. We'll go a little bit further here. So I mean, simple stuff, right? I mean, we just did negative equity and on market. And we did individually own. If only like hardly any records came back, I could do, stuff owned by an LLC too. It's just, I would say the more savvy people kind of get a little more funny about the, about sub 2 and whatnot. All right. So other ways to pull creative finance deals, really nothing crazy here, right? So if I did off market, I'm going to find people in a distressed situation. Hey, I got to sell my house and I got no equity. And I can filter in pain too, right? So no equity once again. Off market, only 300 properties came back. I could call them all. That's still a small list. I could put individually owned on there too, 242, shaved it down a little bit. If I want to try and find some motivated people, maybe some rentals, right? I'm looking to buy a rental. So I'll go absentee. This would generate quite a few. Now, maybe, something like this, increase the equity percentage. Maybe I jump that to 5% so it can populate some more results. Maybe I take off, like in this, if I'm going to do this, I'm definitely going to take off individually owned. I don't really care about that. I'll probably jump this since we're still getting no results. I'll jump it at 3%. Still nothing. So I'm going to jump it at 5%. Still nothing. I think it might be broken. This absentee filter has been creating issues. That's definitely what it is. So I want to just point this out. The only difference was we selected off market, and then I wanted to try and tie in absentee owners. Where that would populate, obviously, again, people with no equity, but because you got absentee, this could populate a lot of rental properties, which is pretty sweet too. And then what's really nice, I'd say like most of the stuff I bought on Creative Finance was already rented with a tenant in place. And so what's really nice about those deals is then you kind of eliminate the issue of sellers needing money to move. If they're living in the house, like, dude, I need at least 10 grand because I gotta move, whatever. But if it's an absentee owner, tenant's already in there, again, seller doesn't need money to move, and you can just take over the existing tenant. Pull some tired landlords like that. So no equity, and they don't live there, so they might really be open to selling it, doing something creative. That's the same thing with the vacant. If I throw on the vacant, they might again be very interested in selling it. That's kind of, I think that's basically everything I wanted to share with you guys on today's Zoom for data. Any questions on data before we roll to general questions? All making sense? All righty, sweet. All right, we could do I got a couple minutes, guys, so we could do just a few general questions if you guys have any.
Are you doing any comping, Eric?
I got to bounce in 10 minutes, so if we got no questions, I could help you comp. Any questions?
Eric, real quick. So you were showing us Auto Leads. That's the platform that's yours, correct?
I built it. I don't own it anymore, though.
Got it. So it's pretty much, because I use PropStream, so it's pretty much similar.
It's yeah. It's just, yeah. I would say the difference. So prop and batch stream or batch leads, they'll have different filters that auto doesn't, and I'd say it's like vice versa. Like they prop doesn't have the inheritance filter. They don't have the death filter, so owners that just passed, and a couple other ones I remember that they didn't have. But auto leads, they're working to plug in like every filter possible, so it's in the works.
Okay, great. Thank you, bud.
Yeah, for sure. And now that they got the age filter, now it's every filter that I've ever used. So, yeah. All right. Any other questions?
Is the wide and deep data that you had shown on Auto Leads applicable to PropWire also? With like the filters and stuff? Give or take what's there and what's not?
I've only been to PropWire once. Okay. I imagine they have, yeah. I'll say this though. So Jerry Norton's PropWire and Auto Leads, they were tied into the same data warehouse. So it was the exact same data in Skip Trace. And now Auto Leads data, I can't share who it's with, but now it's definitely way better than that one. So Auto Leads is better data, better Skip Trace than PropWire for sure. And then it's at the same level as batch and prop. That's really all I can say really on that.
Cool.
All righty. Any other questions? I did want to bring up again, as you guys know, man, we're blowing up our team, A1 Assets. Growing it quick. We're a team of 16 already and only growing faster and faster with more roles and positions opening up. So if anybody's interested in working with me directly, it's a full-time full-time job, full-time gig, but a great way to kind of collapse the timeline to pick things up 10 times faster since I'm working with you all day. And then obviously start making money a lot faster too. Ray, I see you're interested. The link's in the chat. I just posted that for you guys. Actually, that's the wrong link. Hold on. My bad, Ray. And I see Grant. I see you here. I don't know if you have anything you want to add. Grant is another owner of the company.
You kind of said it all, you know. Just looking for people who want to keep taking it to the next level. And been interviewing people like crazy. They've been pretty good. There's a lot of people in this community. And the ones we brought in from this community already are doing the best. So, you know, you guys got the experience. You know, if you want to join, reach out and help us take to the next level.
Oh yeah. The new links in the chat for those of you guys interested. You guys will see like application or testing questions on there. If you don't know it, like don't sweat it, right? So just I don't want you guys to freak out over that. But yeah. All right. So any other questions, I guess? If not, we'll help John out. Are you all good? All right, John, I'll help you comp if you want to throw it in the chat.
I got you. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, I'm getting probably like an 8.
Did you get those other deals kind of worked out?
Yeah, got them. One is getting funded today, so getting paid on that one.
Nice.
And then the other one's closing tomorrow.
Nice. Cool, man. Good stuff.
Yep. And then I got another one. I got one under contract today.
There we go. Team's going good too.
Yes, sir.
There we go. All righty. So what's up with this one?
This one is just outdated, so it probably needs more like a. Since it's kind of like one of those $800,000, $900,000 houses, I would probably give it. I don't know. Let me see. What rehab did I have on it?
Creative finance though?
No. So all cash. So maybe I don't know. Maybe like 50 to 75K on the rehab. Just because you got to put some high end finishes to it.
Is the house really all the way out here?
No, so this is in Lauderhill, Florida. Yes, that one.
Yeah, look, when I click out though and then I hover over it, it's taking us here.
It's showing North Carolina.
Oh, why is it doing that? All right, let me try that again. Yeah, look how weird that is, John. On the map, it's taking you to North Carolina.
What the hell?
So like, were you able to get to where the property is?
Yeah, my map is showing me where it's at, and then like I do the same thing. I'll go to the address, go back to the map, and it shows me where it's at. That's weird.
Let me just try a new Zillow here. Yeah, if this doesn't work, do you want to try posting the Zillow link?
Yeah, I got you.
For everybody else, guys, rolling into next week, we'll just do Q&A and deal help. We'll take a week off from topics and whatnot, just so we could all get caught up. And then Kendrick, I see your question. Do you offer assistance on taxes on these transactions? If you need help, yeah, I got you. I could tell you what to do. Cool. All right, let's see. Yeah, it keeps doing it, John. I don't know why.
You want me to send it to your phone?
I mean, try and do it here because I can't comp on my phone.
Let's see. Okay, there you go. Copy. There you go.
Still doing it. All right. I'm gonna just try to grab like a neighbor's house or something.
Yeah, it's in there. It's close to. Let me see. It's like right in the middle of that lake, on the right side.
All right, I think we got it now with the neighbor. There we go. Perfect. Alrighty. What's the story with it?
They just this is a one of those 1 day Zillows. Called. It's just outdated, so they know they're not gonna get full market for it. But I'm thinking they're already listing it for damn near full market. I'm getting I'm getting the 8, like 825 maybe ARV.
They're high. I mean, it's definitely gonna be worth more than what our offer is by a lot. I think I'm seeing like really, really low odds unless there's some underlying pain with these people.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see.
Yeah, just because it's outdated. I don't know anybody that would buy it this outdated. It looks like it wasn't touched since the 90s. Yeah, probably gonna be like in the 4s with our offer.
Yeah, it's gonna be low. It's gonna be really low. Yeah, you're definitely like mid 8s conservative. You can give it an 850.
But this is livable, so probably like a seller finance scenario wouldn't be out of the play. But I'll definitely work on it on the side.
I would go like yeah, I mean it's gonna be a full flip. I mean with these numbers you might be able to get away with like a 0.75 ARV 0.75 and then give them that for cash or go full ask on creative.
Okay.
That's where my head's at.
That's not bad. Are you getting like 825 as well on the ARV?
850.
850? Okay, cool. So we weren't far off. Awesome, man. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Dylan, I do got to run. If you want to throw it in like super quick, I can give you my opinion on it. Just throw the.
I don't think it'll be super quick. There's a lot of information to go with it.
What's the issue, or what's the problem?
Well, the short of it, I guess, is it's a short sale up in Trapper Creek, Alaska, in Talkeetna. The only reason I'm even considering it is because I got a friend that lives right there, and he wants to live in the house and renovate it. It's $100,000. They owe about $250. They're a year behind on payments, and it goes to auction on the 15th.
100K behind?
No, they're asking $100K for it right now, but they owe $250 roughly. The real estate agent wouldn't give me a hard number. She said she couldn't do that without approval. I told her she was wrong, but but either way, so they owe about $250. They're asking for $100, and they're a year behind on payments.
Okay, and you said the 15th or in 15 days?
The 15th, so 6 days from today, it's supposed to go to auction.
Oh man! All right. So what we would have really have liked to done is to do a loan modification to wipe out those back payments, and then that would have been like an easy sub too. There's zero shot that they're gonna do a loan modification just a couple days away. So the only way, like, there's unfortunately only one thing to do, and that's to reinstate it. If we can reinstate the loan, then it's a deal. But that unfortunately, like, that's it. That's the only option to save them.
Yeah.
If it was sooner,
and then
yeah, or if he could, I doubt it too. But like, put the loan in forbearance, and then maybe attempt a loan modification.
Yeah, I mean, I told my buddy that asked me about trying to get it that it might be a little too close to the end to be able to get it and then move him into it. So
Yeah, reinstatement. That's I think probably the only way to do it.
yeah. Okay, yeah, I figured. I told him it probably wasn't going to pan out, but that real estate agent, another one there, have a bunch of short sales, so they were going to send me some more.
All right. This is the first stuff we'll be looking at in Alaska. That's cool.
Yeah, it's not anywhere I'd normally want to look, but he lives right there, so I figured why not? And he's a contractor as well.
Yeah. No, that's
So-
cool. All right.
I appreciate it though.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Jesse's asking you, Dylan, if it's an FHA loan.
Yeah, I honestly don't know what the loan situation is. All I know is just what the little bit the realtor would tell me this morning. And again, she didn't want to give a lot of information because she kept telling me she'd have to get the bank and the owners to approve giving me any numbers.
Yeah.
Which again, I don't think that's the case, but wasn't in the mood to argue.
Yeah, real quick. The reason why I asked that because, like, if you literally just call the mortgage company and figure out if it's FHA loan, and you talk to them and you tell them you want to start working on a forbearance or loan modification, you can literally do the application over the phone, and that will stop the foreclosure option or the auction date. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it can be done. It's just you have to make a phone call and you have to just talk to the right people. And FHA is the best, but if it's conventional loan, then you have less. But if it's FHA, you have a lot more options. Just keep that in mind on everything.
Okay, well, the realtor's supposed to get back to me. They were potentially under contract depending the bank's approval of whatever the offer was. So she was going to call me later today and let me know if that was going to go through or not.
All righty.
So, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, we'll wrap at that. You guys got Zoom with Terrell tomorrow. Then I'll be back with you guys next week. So kill the day tomorrow. And like I said, we'll do rolling into next week. We're just going to do Q&A and deal help. So should be a lot of deal help. Should be fun. All right, guys, keep killing it. And I'll see you guys on the next one.
Hey, Eric,
Hell
you
yeah.
got a quick second?
I got 2 seconds. Yes.
Easy question. Did you find any buyers for that property I was trying to dispo?
I thought I texted you on that. Did the close date? That's too soon for us to put it up. So I thought I texted you asking if you can grab an extension or if you think you can.
No, you did not. But I cannot. Yeah.
Was it you yesterday? Who was telling me yesterday? EMD's on Friday.
That was me. EMD is tomorrow, and I cannot get another extension.
Where's your buyer activity at?
I've got people asking questions, but no one's decided to throw in an offer or anything and it didn't even get a whole bunch of engagement anyway. So I mean, I've done everything I can think of. I've messaged all my buyers. I've even thrown it on every single Facebook group I could find and everything that I'm a part of.
Josh? Are you gonna be on the mastermind tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll be there.
If you could hop in there. Because it's not going to be enough time. Even if we posted it like this morning, it's still not enough time to pull it off.
Yeah, I know it was iffy.
I think the play is going to be, let's see where you're at by tomorrow with your people. You'll ask for an extension. If it flops, I come in cold and I'll relock the deal and then buy us another 5 days and then we can get it up.
Oh, that's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, I would sweat it. We do that all day long.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, if you flop, any of you guys flop on it, let me know. I'll go in cold and relock that thing.
Well, shit.
Yeah, so hop in tomorrow. If you can't hop in tomorrow, if you can't make it, just call me, and we'll make that happen. Don't sweat it.
All right, man. Awesome. Thank you.
For sure. All right, guys. Enjoy the evening, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.
Thank you, Eric.